Is this a creepy story? Yes, it is. A scary story? Well, that is up to you. They say if you tune into the wrong frequency, you might hear something you were never meant to. Tom Reyes wasn't looking for trouble. A quiet man in a quiet town. Just him, his tools, and his old radios. After his divorce, restoring antique equipment was the only thing that made sense anymore. He spent his days and nights huddled over a desk, wiring, soldering, and it brought peace to him. As he tested a repaired receiver, something odd happened. The dial spun farther than it should. 145.7 FM, a signal that wasn't supposed to exist. He was perplexed on how the display was showing that frequency. But then he snapped out of it, when sounds actually coming out from the channel. A whisper buried under static, right between the known frequencies. That night, Tom heard a conversation, hushed, angry, a woman arguing with her husband about an affair. He recognized her voice. It was Mrs. Clinton. She lived just down the road. He had a barbecue not long ago, and they were both there. As Tom strained to hear more from the broken conversation, he sat back in his chair, startled as the radio snapped back to a normal frequency, and music came steadily out of the radio, when moments before it was crackled, broken, angry people arguing with each other. He sat for a moment and then realized how tired he was. It was after 2 a.m., and he had been working for hours. He brushed off the experience and went to bed. The next day, he headed into town to the small market that served the community. Just needed coffee and a few frozen dinners. The Pine Hollow Market sat on the corner like it had for 60 years, a time capsule. Faded Coca-Cola signs, warped linoleum tiles, aisles crammed with dusty cans and decades of familiarity. He walked past the freezer aisle, nodded to Mrs. Dotson, who was picking out milk, grabbed a newspaper and a carton of eggs, then stepped into line. The clerk, a kid in his early 20s with choppy hair and chipped black nail polish, scanned Tom's items lazily. Then he said it, casual as small talk. Crazy about Mrs. Clinton, huh? Tom blinked. What? Well, her husband found her and, well, you know, gone. Just this morning. Real mess. Sheriff's been around asking questions. Tom just stared. He heard her voice on the radio just last night. The clerk went on, unfazed. They said she hung herself in the shed behind her place. Total shock, I guess. Tom's ears rang. His groceries were still on the counter, untouched. Deja vu doesn't feel like this. Not this cold, not this real. He paid in silence and walked out slowly, the sliding doors groaning shut behind him. Back in his truck, Tom didn't start the engine for a long time. He just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, eyes on the rear-view mirror. The signal was still ringing in his mind, not like a memory, but a warning. That night, Tom couldn't stop thinking about it. The voice, the argument, the news. He tried other explanations. Coincidence, a broadcast delay, something rational. But when the clock hit 1:40 a.m., Tom was already at the workbench, coffee gone cold, dial set, 145.7 FM. At first, nothing, just dead air, not even the usual hiss. He checked the wiring, the antenna, everything was fine. Then, 1:43 a.m. It started with the sound of an engine, deep, aggressive, pushed hard. Something heavy, something angry. A muscle car, big block. Tom knew the sound, like a beast with no leash under it. Almost lost in the hum of acceleration. Music, old rock, grainy, lo-fi, and someone singing along, badly. Tom leaned in. The singing cut off suddenly, replaced by a sharp curse, then tires screeching, brakes locking, metal and glass twisting, folding, screaming. Then came the horn. That awful, endless car horn, a flat, blaring tone that droned on and on. Behind it, Tom could hear the drip of coolant, the groan of bent metal cooling in the night air. He stared at the radio, frozen. No voices, no help, no movement. Just the aftermath. And then, exactly at 2 a.m., the signal cut out. The dial jumped, static again, then a cheerful jingle from a morning talk show. Tom didn't change the station, he just turned the power off. He opened a beer, sat on the couch, didn't turn on a light, didn't turn on the TV, just sat. The beer barely touched his lips. What did he just hear? A prank? A recorded crash? Or did he just listen to someone die? He stared into the dark. Then he heard it. A muscle car going fast, too fast. Tom stood, heartbeat rising, walked to the window, pulled the curtain just in time to see headlights streak past. The engine roared, then just out of view. Tires squealing, impact, glass, crunch. Then the horn blared on and didn't stop. Tom ran outside, gravel crunching under his boots, the cold hitting his lungs like a slap. At the bend in the road, just past his mailbox, the wreckage waited. The same sound. The same car. Steam rose from the hood like smoke from a wound. The driver, a young man, face bloody, chest still. Gone. No one else around. Tom's eyes dropped to his watch. 3:03 a.m. He blinked, looked back toward the house, back at the car. Did that crash happen right at 3? Or had it already happened hours ago? On the radio? He walked back inside his trailer and called the sheriffs about the accident. Was up until the sun broke, provided his statement about the speed and hearing the crash, but not daring to mention the radio signal. How could he? The next night, Tom didn't want to listen again, but he had to. 2 nights, 2 voices, 2 deaths. He needed to know if it was real, or if he was already slipping. 1:47 a.m. The dial buzzed to life. At first weak static that slowly gives way to faint, labored breathing. At first, just muttering. A man's voice, low, strained. Every few words punctuated by pain. Come on. Come on. Hurry up. Then a groan. Not theatrical, real, tired, hurt. Gotta stay awake. Almost there. Tom leaned in, every nerve on edge. The man's voice faded, like he was drifting away. More grunts, softer this time. Then silence. Except for a car engine, steady, idling. And beneath that, something else. In the background, the distant rhythmic clatter of a train on tracks. A train. That was it. He was sitting at a railroad crossing, waiting. The train rolling past, the car engine running, and a man trying to stay awake, and failing. Tom slowly sits back, a look of realization dawning. The dial flicks. The signal's gone. Exactly 2 a.m. Gone, but not forgotten. Tom stared at the silent radio. One thought cut through the noise. This guy's going to die too. The others had been close, local. That voice, the words, almost there. It had to mean the clinic in town. And if that was true, Tom knew the only railroad crossing on that side of the county. He tore out of his driveway like the road was on fire. speeding through sleepy streets, passing closed shops, empty gas stations, dark houses, the whole town asleep, except for him. And maybe one more soul. The train was still passing when Tom got there. Boxcars clattered by like a metal curtain, and there, headlights still on, a car idling, half pulled off the shoulder, perhaps more like drifted off the road slightly. He ran up to the window. A man in the driver's seat, slumped forward, breathing shallow, skin pale. A jacket pressed tight over his side, stained dark. Tom yanked the door open, too late. Final car of the train clatters by. The crossing bells go silent. The engine purrs. The horn is off this time, replaced by the quiet click of the hazard lights. He was gone. Another voice, gone silent. Tom stepped back, breath steaming in the cold air. He looked down at his watch. 3:03 a.m. Same as before, 3 voices, 3 deaths, each one playing out over the radio before it ever happened. He was too late, and if the signal came again tomorrow, would he be too late again? He stood there in the dark with the pulse of the yellow hazards going off. He needed to call this in. But won't it be weird if he was involved in back-to-back days of weird deaths? Should he just leave and let someone else find this man he had never met before? There was nothing he could do for him now anyways. He got back into his card, worrying that suspicion might grow around him, as everyone knew everyone here, and rumors spread fast and stick hard. The next night, Tom sat in the dark, waiting, not to listen, but to decide if he should. He kept staring at the dial, just 4 little numbers, 1, 4, 5, 7. But it felt like a trigger. What if it was him? What if tuning in was the thing that made these deaths happen? That by hearing it, he was somehow writing the ending. So he didn't. He stood up, left the radio off, went to bed. For the first time in nights, no static, no voices, no horror, just silence. The next day felt lighter, until he bumped into Sheriff Keene, standing at the end of the aisle pouring sugar into a small styrofoam cup of coffee. The sheriff looked like hell. Eyes red-rimmed, beard growing wild, his uniform shirt rumpled like he hadn't changed it in days. Tom offered a casual, "You all right?" The sheriff just shook his head. "No, not really." He sipped his coffee, then sighed through his nose. 4 nights. 4 people. Different causes, but all sudden. I've been here 27 years, Tom. Never seen anything like this. It's like death's got a schedule now. Tom blinked. 4 deaths? But he hadn't listened last night. That's when it hit him. It wasn't him. It was going to happen either way. The signal didn't need an audience. It just was. He needed to know more about the transceiver. He had picked it up from the only pawn shop in town. Really cheap, as it didn't work. Maybe if he went back, they'd have paperwork on the previous owner, and he could get more information. So he went to the only pawn shop in town, a crumbling storefront that smelled like old carpet and nicotine. He went in and recognized the owner and who sold it to him. The owner, a gaunt man in a denim vest with 3 teeth and a sour disposition. After a few words of chit-chat, Tom asked if he remembered what the owner sold him a few weeks back. The owner scratched his beard and shrugged. "That old thing? Found it buried back in storage. Been here longer than I have. No paperwork, no records. Might have belonged to the original shop owner. Thought I'd clean it up and see if some old-timer wanted it, which then you swung in and got it. defeated with not getting any new information, other than it sat in that shop for years on a back shelf. He didn't know what else to do, so he went down and paced, his thoughts racing as the sun went down into night. The room is darker than usual. No music. Just Tom alone, a clock ticking in the background. 1:46 a.m. Tom didn't want to listen, but he had to. 4 nights, 4 deaths. The signal crackled in, but this time it was different. No engine, no music. No pain, not at first. Just a knock. Hollow knocking on wood. A door creaks open. "Hello?" Tom recognized it instantly. It was his own voice. His stomach turned cold. What was this? A recording? A memory? Then another voice answered, one he didn't recognize. "I believe you have something of mine," and I want it back. The voice was smooth, low, almost like a hiss. Tom's breath caught. Something of his? What? Who was this? He lost track of the conversation for a moment, mind racing, grasping at fragments, trying to remember ever meeting this person, but he didn't. He was sure of it. Then his voice again, angry, defensive. Then the stranger again, cold, resolute, "Fine, let's do it this way." Sudden violence, a scream, not just pain, terror, a raw, helpless, animal scream. So many sounds it was overwhelming. Not just pain, but destruction, crashing, glass, furniture, bone, something tearing, smashing, ripping, gurgling. Tom listened, paralyzed. It was his own voice, begging, shrieking, breaking, a scream he had never heard himself make before. Then, silence, not peace. Just absence. And then, a slurping sound, wet, slow, final. And then, nothing. 2 a.m. The dial snapped back, the signal gone. Tom couldn't sit still. He paced the living room like a caged animal, thoughts racing with the speed of a freight train. Should he run? Where would he go? Should he fight? With what? Call for help? And say what exactly? That a haunted radio told him he's about to die? No, this was different. The others, they had died somewhere else. He had only heard them. But tonight, he had heard himself. Screaming, begging, dying. And he knew it was going to happen here. "I believe you have something of mine," the voice said. It had to be the radio. That damn machine, pulling voices from somewhere outside time. Maybe that's what it wanted back. Tom's body moves on instinct, like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. He enters his workroom, begins unplugging the transceiver violently. He yanked the cords with purpose, no second thoughts. The radio, cold and heavy in his hands, pulsed like a dead heart. He carried it into the living room and set it down on the coffee table like an offering, then sat and waited. That hour passed like eternity, the longest Tom had ever lived. His thoughts blurred. He felt like he could hear the walls breathe. And then, 3 a.m., a gentle, deliberate knock at the door. Not frantic, not aggressive, just inevitable. Tom froze, then stood, feet heavy, chest tight. He opened the door. Framed in the doorway is a tall, rail-thin figure. Backlit by the porch light, his silhouette is unnaturally long, like the shadows themselves fear him. The man, if he was a man, stood just outside the door. "I believe you have something of mine," he said in a voice like a cold breeze through rotted wood. Snake-like, calm, hungry. He was tall, taller than Tom, easily over 6 feet. Dressed in a black suit, clean but ancient, not old-fashioned, just wrong. On his head, a wide-brimmed hat, round like something the Amish might wear, but off, slightly too wide, slightly too tall, like it belonged in a world with different rules of fashion and physics. The stranger extends one hand, unnaturally long fingers splayed open, waiting. Tom's eyes dropped to the hand. The skin was too smooth, too pale. The fingers too long, joints in the wrong places. But what froze him most was the face, or lack of one. The hat cast a shadow that swallowed every feature, but Tom knew the eyes were locked on his, predatory, patient. Tom swallowed hard, cleared his throat. "Yes," he said. "I have it here, please. Just a moment." He backed away, keeping his eyes on the figure, grabbed the radio, and returned. With shaking hands, he placed it into the stranger's waiting palm. Tom hesitated to let go, as the stranger still only had one arm up to hold it. But as he released the weight, the stranger easily held it with one outstretched arms, what took Tom two to easily hold. "Unusual," he hissed, "but acceptable." He nodded. Not a thank you, not a goodbye, just acknowledgement. Then turned and walked away into the night. No car, no footsteps, no sound, just gone. Tom stood there a long while, door open, night wind curling around his ankles. The radio was gone, and for the first time in 6 nights, there was no signal, no static, no screaming, no death. But Tom knew this wasn't over. Because some debts aren't paid in full. They're just postponed. 2 weeks passed. The deaths stopped. No more strange signals, no more nightmares. Tom went quiet, kept to himself. Some say he left town, others aren't so sure. But in the corner of that same old pawn shop, under a shelf marked vintage audio equipment, something had returned. The black radio, old, heavy, faint scuff marks across the dials, back on display like it had never left. The shop owner didn't remember restocking it, just figured someone had brought it back for store credit. A teenage boy walks in. Hoodie, backpack, bored. He browses for a minute, then spots the transceiver. His eyes light up. A high school senior named Jordan came in looking for a cheap stereo. He didn't know much about radios, but this one looked cool. He liked the knobs, the weight of it, the way it hummed when he touched the tuning dial. The tag said $25. He had $30. Sold. That night, he couldn't sleep, so he sat down, turned the dial, and listened. Some say the signal only plays for the chosen. Others say it plays for anyone until it finds the one it wants. If you like this story, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe for more original horror stories that crawl under your skin. And remember, if you hear static after midnight, don't tune in. Tap the bell, or the next scream might be yours.